Before we start this video, everyone, I think we should all take a moment of silence. We have lost someone very near and dear to the Star Wars universe, someone whose presence that we've always known but never really heard from. He meant a lot to a lot of people, and his memory will live on forever. We just like to say, rest in peace, Admiral Jeff Blue Jeans. You will be missed.
You know, somewhere, at some point, someone is going to make a thing about Admiral Blue Jeans. There will be a legit Star Wars character, side character named Admiral Blue Jeans. And it will be canon, and he will have this elaborate backstory. Watch that happen. That's going to be a thing.
But in all seriousness...
Yes, in all seriousness, we also do want to commemorate the loss of Darth Vader's body double as well.
David Prowse.
David Prowse, yes. We haven't heard him speak aside from, behind-the-scenes stuff, but nevertheless, he was an important figure. He was one of the 4 people that apparently made up Darth Vader, so nevertheless, he will be missed. He is a legend, and may the Force be with him always. With that being said, welcome back, everyone, to We Have Spoken. And oh boy, we have a doozy today. This is the one a lot of people have been looking forward to, the Jedi, in which we see the return of Ashoka Tano. And man, is it glorious. Be still, my beating heart. I'll say it right now, I'm a huge Rosario Dawson fan. I love her. I will make her my wife one day. So apologize if I gush sometimes, but I thought she was amazing in this. I still have a basic knowledge of Ahsoka, because again, I'm watching Clone Wars as we speak, but I do like her, and I think from what I know of her, she portrays her rather accurately. And I like that she, is like a badass warrior and everything. It's just... oh, God, she was so amazing. You guys?
I love how, the big concern was... everyone was worried with Rosario Dawson being Ahsoka because, why didn't they just get the voice actress? Because, there are animators who tried to make the voice actress... try to make the character model look like the voice actress sometimes. Sometimes the animators can work with it. Sometimes they can't. Not to say that the original voice actress, nothing against her or anything. It was more of, I could see it from a casting standpoint, why they went with Rosario Dawson, because she kind of looks a little bit more like that. It's kind of why you had Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, because, even though she coincidentally did voice Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars series, she also just happened to look like the character. So sometimes it's just based on just what looks better, better translation from animation to live action. And this just happened to work out. She was fine. That wasn't really the big revelation of what she looks like, because she looks exactly what I thought she was going to look like.
Yeah, as soon as it was announced that she was going to play her, I immediately saw these Photoshop pictures of her, and it was amazing. And of course, she looked just like we thought she would, and I'm like, perfect. I couldn't imagine anyone better. And again, she got her character down and all that. Granted, she's a lot older than when everyone knew her back in Clones and Rebels, but you can still tell it's her, and she's still a badass.
Because it's been because at this point it's about 20 somewhat years after Clone Wars.
Probably longer than that, 25 years at the least.
Yeah, so she's at this point. So her character, I guess, I don't know how you go by species, with their aging, but she's older now, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
For her to look like this.
Yeah, and I mean, even in Rebels, they aged her up a bit too, so...
yes.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I see this mostly in, the Facebook groups, but a lot of people were complaining about her, what is that?
Oh, the length of her...
That did look kind of fake, honestly. I did notice that.
Well, not just
the length of her tendrils?
It was not just fake looking, but they said that, they weren't long enough and that they had creases and stuff. And I argue that A, she's older, it makes sense she'd have wrinkles. B, it's skin, I assume, or at least, part of her body, and
it's part of her body.
Yeah, and skin creases. Also, these are the same people that would lambast the prequels for its overabundance of CGI technology, and suddenly they're shitting on practical effects. You could give her the longer tendrils, but how the hell is she gonna fight with those? Like,
Not so well.
let's be practical here.
Although you do see her fight with that, in like Rebels and stuff.
Yeah, but
Correct me if
that
I'm wrong.
was CGI. Like,
I know.
That's a lot easier. It's not like, real life where she can get away with that. Like, even they'd have to add in like a lot of CGI and it would look fake as shit.
Also, from a live action, like a costume design standpoint, it's not practical. If you made her tendrils as long as in the animated series, like the actress would have difficulty trying to maneuver. I think it's more for a maneuverability standpoint,
exactly.
because otherwise you're not going to see her do all the crazy stuff that you saw her do in the first 5 minutes of this episode.
It'd be like a Green Lantern thing, where they CGI the crap out of like her outfit or something just to make it look maneuverable, but it ends up looking shitty as a result. I think they did perfectly fine with the costumes, to be honest. And it pisses me off that people are like picking that apart. It's like, we've wanted practical effects and costumes in Star Wars for years now, and like we were heading in the right direction with the sequel trilogies, and now that we have it in Mandalorian, suddenly you're all like, oh no, it was like, that looks so fake, and I'm like, what do you think this guy is? If we were still going by Lucas's like prequel, like, stuff, like this guy would be completely CGI.
Yeah.
So, again, be thankful. Freaking fans.
I always find Rosario Dawson is a joy, always a delight to watch. I thought she was great casting for this. And I forget the Ahsoka's voice actress's name. I think it's like Ashley Eckhart, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, but I saw that she had actually tweeted in like massive support. She was just happy to see the character get translated into live action, and I think from what I heard too, the two of them even talked to each other.
Yes.
To so she could give pointers to Rosario about how to do the character.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, yeah. I think that was perfect.
I mean, that's the best way to go about it, let's be honest. But Ahsoka's side, everything else about the episode was pretty good too. I do like that the whole thing was basically an homage to like that samurai film.
It was one of the Kurosawa films. In fact, I saw somebody on Facebook, like, they took a side-by-side shot example of the episode and then that movie. I forgot what the name of it is, but it's an old Kurosawa film. Because a lot of like the different shots and like the themes in Star Wars stem from a lot of old Kurosawa films. The fact that they're still taking inspiration from that, even in this series, even in Mandalorian, just shows it's like, hey, why not?
Yep.
Hey, why not?
Kurosawa westerns, this is the roots of Star Wars.
This is more samurai than like Western. I mean, we've seen more like Western theme in like earlier episodes, but here this was more like samurai, and I like that. Nice to see that there is a material that a lightsaber can't cut through the Beskar, because I like the fight in the end with where Ahsoka is fighting the
Magistrate.
The Magistrate with the Beskar. And I thought that was a nice change of pace from the traditional lightsaber.
Honestly, when it comes to like taking on lightsabers with non-lightsaber weaponry, Beskar is the best thing to use because it's actually lightsaber resistant. It's not impenetrable, but it stands up the best. I mean, why the heck do you think like Mandalorians like cover themselves in it, especially when they're fighting against the Jedi? Too bad it didn't work for Django though.
He wasn't fast enough.
Nope.
He wasn't Mandalorian enough.
That's it.
But speaking of Mandalorian, so Mando finally arrives on the planet, meets up. It's funny how he ends up meeting up with Ahsoka, because he goes into town and he meets up with the Magistrate, and the Magistrate like, I have a problem. And Mando's like, yeah, who else? Who doesn't have a problem? Who doesn't have a problem? And it's like, I have a Jedi problem. And I like how coy's being with this. I'm just like, I'm just like, I need you here. Like, you could have this shiny spear, the spear of Selene. No, wait, wrong show. So he agrees and he goes out, and it leads up. At least he knows that Ahsoka is there. They meet up with Ahsoka, and he's just like, wait, here, I have this.
Here, take it. Speaking of the Magistrate, real quick, I was looking up her background info, and yeah, she's quite a badass. Like, she's not known much for her acting, but it's more in terms of her stunt work, because she's like a professional stunt woman, a martial artist. In fact, her father, who taught her how to fight, was trained by Bruce Lee, who is actually her godfather. So she's kind of like a legacy there. In fact, she's been on like tons of like karate magazines and stuff because that's how famous she is in that sphere. And then we have her lieutenant, played by freaking Kyle Reese from Terminator. Because I thought he looked familiar because I kept looking at him and the camera kept focusing on him, and I'm like, I know he is somebody famous, I know he's somebody important, but I can't for the life of me figure it out. And then I looked it up later, I'm like, okay, that makes sense now. Poor Kyle Reese. He died the way he lived, fighting a metal man.
Speaking of metal men and bodyguards, and you would know this, so there are some of you that might have played a little game called Knights of the Old Republic. They have droids that are called HK-87s as part of the
bodyguard.
Part of the bodyguards, yeah. And to any of you who have played Knights of the Old Republic or KOTOR, you would know this is basically the latest model since HK-47, who is an assassin droid that you meet up with, and who is not above calling you a meatbag.
Tinier than yours, meatbag.
But that's once again, it's Lucasfilm pulling, as they're reintroducing characters and elements into the new canon, and been doing it through with this show. And it's interesting how they reincorporate it. Most of the time when they reincorporate it, they basically just repurpose it basically the same way how it was originally introduced. But lately, it mostly keeps it about the same, but they'll tweak it a little bit here and there with some cases, depending on the situation. But I like how it's basically just kind of just putting stuff back where it belongs for the most part. You're going to
pick and choose.
But they're going to pick and choose. Speaking of picking and choosing, we'll get to that. I want to save that for the end. So I like how Ahsoka and the child, for intents and purposes right now, they talk. I guess they
using the Force.
I guess they mind. I want to say they
mind meld or something.
I know it's a Star Trek thing, but like
it's a telepathic thing, I think.
I mean, the kid is 50, so it's like.
Yeah.
I mean, we just know they can communicate using the Force somehow.
And we find out more, and we find out that he has a name.
Yes, he is Grogu.
His name is Grogu.
Honestly, I've been wondering that at this point, if the child was ever going to get an official name or not. And it's not just for, the fact of just giving him a title besides calling him the child or Baby Yoda or whatever. It's like, from a story part standpoint, it's like, yeah, you can have, like, nameless characters, but there's only so long you can get away with that. Because one thing that always bothered me, whenever they went anywhere new, or whenever Mando would, run into somebody who's meeting the child for the first time, like, never once does anybody, like, say, oh, hey, he's so cute, what's his name? And, like, Mando's just like, Because think about it, like, you see a person with a dog, and you go pet the dog, what's one of the first things you ask them? Oh, look, cute, what's his name? Nobody ever asked that in like a season and a half.
They're too busy with other things with names. They don't want to get attached, or they don't want to find out, because if they get captured, then it's like, ooh, so and so, and then they have to blurt out their name.
That's what I kind of figured would happen, because had they not name dropped him in this episode, I thought that they would have, by the end of the season, like maybe Mando would have bestowed a name upon him, and it would have shown that he fully accepted him and has gotten fully attached to him. Not that I'm disappointed or anything. I mean, it would have been a nice gesture, but I mean, I figured he had a name before all this, especially given he's 50 years old. That he's been dealing with however many people. Somebody gave him a name at some point, so finally we have the answer. And it's a cute name. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an alien name, so I don't have any complaints about it. Although can't say the same for the internet, though. My favorite.
Well, we don't care about the internet.
My favorite meme is one where someone splices in footage of The Rock, and they're like, "Oh, what's your name, little guy? Oh, my name is. It doesn't matter what your name is." And there are people who are still gonna call him Baby Yoda or whatever, just name redacted, like the Washington football team. But I think it's perfectly fine. But then, of course, we get to the more the meat of the episode. Like, we find out that he actually was around in the Jedi Temple during the Clone Wars, and we obviously assume he escaped from being slaughtered by Anakin with the rest of his fellow classmates.
With the rest of the younglings.
And he's had other masters before, but after, like, he escaped the temple, there's, like, no memory. It's just darkness, which leaves a lot to be theorized about. It's like, was his memories, like, taken from him? Were they repressed? There's a lot of connotations with that.
I think because in the episode, Ahsoka sensed, much fear in this, and,
Which is understandable, given the shit he goes through.
But, as we all know, fear leads the path to the dark side, in Star Wars. So that's why Ahsoka is hesitant to train, because, like, no, because last time that happened, I saw what it can do. Spoilers, I guess, for anybody who hasn't seen Rebels at this point, but Ahsoka does find out that Anakin is Darth Vader.
That I did know.
Because of that, she is hesitant on wanting to train Grogu.
Which I don't blame her, honestly. Plus, it's not just the fact that he has, like, fear in him, it's also the fact that he's attached to Mando, which, according to Jedi, having attachments is a bad thing. Because the whole thing is that you're supposed to be trained by your master, and his only master, like, for the most part, is Mando, even though he doesn't even fully listen to Mando, but he has more of an emotional attachment than to anybody else. Because, like, you can see, like, even Ahsoka could see it, like, hence why she made Mando be the one to, like, get him to use his powers, and he only did it just because he had something that he wanted. Yeah, I didn't see that working out, though, because there's no way that the child would willingly be trained by Ahsoka, even if she tried.
No, but she did give him another place to go to. She goes to go to the planet Typhon because there's an old Jedi temple there, and if he goes to that temple, then he can reach out with the Force and try to see which direction the kid will go. I don't know if they're going to do that at the end of the season. I don't know if they're going to do it at the end of the season, or they're going to save that for season 3. It's possible.
They might just do it next episode, let's be honest here.
That is true.
We're more than halfway through the season, so
yes.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, we're in the second. Yeah. We're in third.
We've only got like 3 episodes left.
Yeah, we're in like the third act of this overarching, of the overarching of this episode of this season, and much of it involving Grogu reuniting with the Jedi, and we got to that point already. But there's still something else we need to talk about. So during the fight with Ahsoka and the Magistrate, she goes, "Where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" And me and Doug, we geeked out over this. We're just like, oh my god, they're gonna... So, it's not just they're bringing Ahsoka into the live action, they're hinting at Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is one of, like, the bigger baddies that was created in the expanded universe. He's one of the more cunning villains. Anybody who's seen Star Wars Rebels, who, for many people, was probably their introduction to it, but for a lot of older fans, it was in the Thrawn trilogy novels that were published way back in the 90s, as well as there was several other books as well. Now with this new canon, with reintroducing the character into Rebels, and there was also another novel written by Timothy Zahn who was the first person to introduce the character. Now all of a sudden we might get a live action Thrawn, and now we're trying to figure out, all right, who's going to play him in live action? I mean, there's I have to think about this more, but now that's going to be the speculation is going to be, are they going to introduce Grand Admiral Thrawn next season? Or I'm thinking more at the end of the season. I'm thinking like at the very end, because I think
he might come in as like part of, like, he might be talking with
Moff Gideon.
Yeah, Moff Gideon. Yeah,
he's either going to be talking with Moff Gideon, or he's going to come in after finding out that Moff Gideon failed. Like maybe they kill off Moff Gideon and then they introduce Grand Admiral Thrawn into as a setup for season 3, as the next big baddie for season 3. Because right now Gideon is really the big baddie for the show, per se.
It's funny because that season 3, I think, is when Thrawn became part of the Rebels.
But this is live action, though. This is live action, so like it could be like this big thing. I mean, heck, I mean, at the end of season 1, we got the Darksaber as another element. So maybe with Grand Admiral Thrawn, that might be the next thing.
I also think, in addition to that, and again talking about Rebels, I think we're also it does beg the question, they're going to bring Ezra Bridger into this. Because given how, Rebels ended, it did involve Ezra and Thrawn going missing, in effect. So, yeah, I think that ultimately they're going to have both characters show up. And I'm thinking also, like, it's possible that if they go to the Jedi Temple, because they said they might connect with a Jedi, I'm thinking that leaves a lot of room for it to be Ezra. I'm not saying
I was thinking that too, because I was thinking to myself, what other Jedi would be left at this point?
I mean, apart from Luke Skywalker, in fact, there's a lot of articles.
Yeah, but we
right
know
now.
in terms of continuity that wouldn't make sense.
I did see one article hinting that they could do Luke Skywalker, but they had Sebastian Stan.
I heard people say that too.
I could see it though.
I'm like,
I mean, it's younger, but because right now Mark Hamill,
I know he's old, and
old.
they obviously gonna need a body double unless they do the whole thing with the face where they're
not,
CGI, which I hope they don't.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But there is something to that, because I think somebody made a fan comic of Ahsoka meeting Luke and how he reveals that, that Anakin redeemed himself and that he saw Anakin's real face before he died.
I saw that too.
Yeah, so I'm like, I kind of want to see that, translated into the actual series. I know it's probably not going to happen, but that would be nice if they could do that.
I don't know if they'll do it in Mandalorian, maybe in something else.
Maybe in something else.
And that's another thing I've been thinking about, because I've read that they're using Season 2 of Mandalorian as to hint at possible other Star Wars spin-offs. Now, we know that there's the Kenobi series that's spinning off, but they might hint at they want to do other shows. So maybe we get a live-action Ahsoka series, maybe we get, maybe that, and then we use
a side series. You get a side series. Everybody gets a side series. Poor Mando.
But that's got me thinking also, going back to Grand Admiral Thrawn, is he going to show up in Mandalorian, or are they going to do a spin-off series with Ahsoka, where Ahsoka's tracking down Grand Admiral Thrawn? I don't know. They haven't said anything. But
I did have a theory, and keep in mind, I'm the noob here, so I don't really know Grand Admiral Thrawn at all. I know him by name, but I've never actually seen him, because again, I haven't gotten to Rebels yet. I tried my best to do research on him before this video. I do remember reading at one point, they said in the novels that when he was at his peak after the Empire had fallen and he was trying to take over as the new Emperor or whatever, he wanted to actually have a Dark Jedi working with him to further his reach and everything, and to basically be his enforcer. I'm wondering if perhaps he's gonna try to get, Grogu to be his apprentice or whatever, and just raise him as that, sink in and actually bring out the dark side in him, thus fulfilling everybody's theory that the child will go to the dark side.
That actually would make sense. That would be a way to bring Grand Admiral Thrawn into The Mandalorian, into Season 3.
Didn't Mara Jade also work for him? Wasn't she a Dark Jedi before she became?
Yes, yeah, because Mara Jade was
assuming she exists in this continuity.
I know.
I don't think she will.
They have not reintroduced Mara Jade, because Mara Jade, she was actually worked for the Emperor originally. She originally worked for the Emperor directly as one of the, I guess you call it, Dark Jedi, that worked for something called the Emperor's Hand. Which were basically Dark Jedi who were either captured and forced to work for the Emperor, or willfully just gave up and decided to work for him just so they could stay alive.
Right. And
it was basically they were kind of like Jedi assassins, more like assassins, to kind of go work in the shadows and kind of kill everything that doesn't require Darth Vader coming in and blowing shit up.
Well, if that's the case, then, if Thrawn has taken over where the Emperor has fallen, he probably has access to those Dark Jedi and would probably try to indoctrinate Grogu into that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, do we see any of that with Thrawn in Rebels at all?
Not really.
Or maybe because Rebels is is early Empire, so it's
it's early Empire. It's like 5 years before New Hope. Yeah, no, I don't recall seeing any of that. Most of his appearance in Rebels
is him doing regular Admiral stuff.
Yeah, is not operating any sort of agenda. He's just doing the work that he is supposed to be doing.
So it could be they could bring those same motives from the old canon into the new one.
It's possible.
Wouldn't be that far off.
Mm-hmm.
Is if I had to theorize anything from this point, in terms of like, what's gonna happen, I'm gonna guess that Mando's gonna take him to that planet, put him on the stones, and before the child like fully makes his choice or whatever, that's when the Empire's gonna attack. Moff Gideon's gonna attack because obviously they're tracing them, and he's gonna kidnap him. And now Mando has to, try to get him back. And at the same time that that's happening, Grand Admiral Thrawn's going to make his appearance. Now, I can see this going one of two ways. Either Thrawn and Gideon work together, and that Gideon gets what he needs for his super soldiers, while Thrawn gets the apprentice that he wants. Or they end up fighting each other, because, Gideon still wants the Empire to rise again, whereas Thrawn now wants to take over completely. So they could be at odds, and it could be another fight between who gets the child.
I think Thrawn will show up, but it'll be like the very, very end. Because I think I still agree with that Moff showing up and try to capture him. But then Mando goes on a rescue mission to rescue Grogu. And
he meets up with whatever Jedi happens to like sense the child at that time. Because I feel like he probably will decide not to like seek out the Jedi, but something will happen that will make him unleash his power, and then somebody out there is going to sense it just because they're at such a pivotal spot for Force users.
But I'm thinking at the end, Mando rescues Grogu. He kills off Moff Gideon, so Moff Gideon is gone. But at the very end, when everything's all nice and wrapped up, then Grand Admiral Thrawn hears about the incident and is like, I better, it's like, fine, I'll do it myself, Thanos kind of thing.
Time to get out of my chair.
He does sit in a chair. He does have a chair, so like basically like the Thanos reveal.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see that, and how season 2 ends. Excuse me. That's kind of how I see this season ends, with the face reveal of Grand Admiral Thrawn. End season 2, and then we go right into season 3. That's how I see it end. Like, you need to end with that. Kind of like how in the end of season 1, we end with Moff Gideon holding the Darksaber, and everybody's like, wait, what?
You gotta get that hook.
Yes.
You gotta make people subscribe to Disney+.
So, like I said, we do see Grand Admiral Thrawn, but at the very end. Like, the very, very end.
I can see that happening, too. So, that's assuming that they do want to fully incorporate him, and that he's not just, bait for a potential spin-off series.
That's the thing I'm worried about, like, because, like, as we said before, are they... Like, they're just doing it to kind of see what people will like and create spin-offs. It's like, do we see him in the spin-off, or do we see him in Mandalorian? I could see him in Mandalorian as a violent
Honestly,
threat.
if they're like pulling this, reveal this early on, I think it's a fair bet he's going to be in Mandalorian.
A lot of people would be pissed off if he's not.
Yeah.
He's too big a name at this point to like for them to just casually drop that and not follow up on it.
And he would be a great adversary for Mando. I think he would.
Yeah, because you said he's like really smart, right?
Yes, he's very cunning. Mando can be very cunning as well, so you got two of them going at odds with each other.
He's more of a fighter, though.
He's more of a fighter, but he can be but Mando can be strategic when he needs to be.
True.
I have another theory. Gonna sound kind of stupid, but plausible. Given how beat up the Razor Crest has been, I feel like the Razor Crest is gonna bite it this season.
Or next season.
More likely at the end of this season. Mando is gonna wind up meeting up with the crew of the Ghost, and then he's basically gonna be using.
But then all of a sudden then it's like you're doing Rebels all over again.
I just love how Mando, even though that he's the star of the show, he's basically a side character in his own series. It's like that meme I showed you earlier, where it's that he, like, all this other important stuff is going on, stuff that is left over from, like, clones and Rebels and all that, like, characters that we know have, like, established plot lines and stuff. And Mando is just, like, gets roped into all this, but he doesn't stick around long enough to find out the details. He's just like, okay, just get me what I need so I can leave and, like, take care of my little baby.
I just thought of something. I mean, I was snapping earlier, but I just thought of something. You were talking about, the Razor Crest biting it. What if, I don't know how they would work this in, but, I mean, because we saw this in the season premiere, Boba Fett shows up, and the Razor Crest bites it.
He gets Slave 1.
He gets Slave 1.
Hopefully rename it. Because come on, oof.
Mando 1. Maybe renames it Mando 1.
Yeah. I mean, that's possible. That's gotta be. I don't want to say it'd be an old ass ship at this point.
The Millennium Falcon has been around, since early Empire, maybe possibly.
I still don't understand how that thing still lasts that long. Even when it was we first saw it, everyone called it a hunk of junk. It's just. I'm not bashing this ship in any way. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just saying, especially given how much we saw the Razor Crest go through, how much more can it survive? I feel like we're gonna have an ending it's gonna be like the Enterprise in Return of Spock, and where they willingly blow it up in the end or something. I mean,
I was kind of thinking that too, as just sacrifice the Razor Crest for another ship, and then Boba Fett shows up and they go on the Slave 1. And
I can just imagine the first thing out of Mando's mouth is so what's with the name?
But I mean, honestly, he was still using the ship back in Empire, and it's probably still parked outside Jabba's palace at this point.
You'd think that Jawas would have hacked the shit out of that. Rated for parts or something. You watch they just strip off the name.
Depends on how quickly.
Get rid of that problem.
Depends on how quickly Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit.
True.
I don't think it was that long though, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but he still had to get past all those teeth and tentacles and whatnot. Good theory, though. It'd be interesting to see how they spin that. Anything else regarding this episode?
That's all I can think of right now.
It was a big old exposition dump that kind of sets up a lot of stuff for the next season or two.
Combined with your typical trope of the loner who frees this town from imprisonment or whatever.
It's so weird. It's when you look at the episode itself, it's so timed out. There's so much space between things happening. And it's amazing just how much actually happens in this.
A lot of it was more lore dump than actual stuff happening.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, the action scene was still great.
Oh,
though.
yeah.
I was surprised because I expected Mando to kind of be dragging unconscious Ahsoka into town, saying oh, I killed her. Here's your bounty, and then she kind of jumps up and starts killing people. But the fact that she went straight in and he only showed up just to basically hold the door while she fought the boss.
Sounds like I lost. Oh well.
I just love how she and the Magistrate are going all out in this fight, just wailing on each other, and meanwhile the two guys are standing outside the door so, how you doing? They're just we're just gonna wait this out, see who wins. Stupid Kyle Reese, he didn't have to die. He's come on, you're really gonna pull a fast one on a Mandalorian. You deserve that death. It was a good episode, very interesting. Any other final thoughts? Any other predictions aside from what we said before?
I think that covers it for this week, and there's only 3 episodes left of this season.
Yeah, and at this point, unfortunately, we still haven't gotten a title release yet, so I'm just gonna, leave it blank. But
and I'm wondering if they're gonna do what they did with last season. Basically, the last 2 episodes are, like a 2-parter.
I will say this: I looked ahead, and the only thing I noticed that was different was that not next episode, but the episode after that. It's the only one this season that isn't written by Jon Favreau. It's written by somebody different. I tried looking him up, but I didn't see anything beyond a few credits.
Well, Jon Favreau didn't write all the episodes for season 1?
Well, I don't know about season 1, but season 2, he wrote all the episodes with the exception of the one episode, I think chapter 14 or something.
Because if I remember correctly, in season 1, Jon Favreau, I think he wrote the first two or 3 episodes, and then he did help out with he did write another episode here and there, but I don't think he wrote all the scripts for season 1. I know other people. I'm pretty sure other people have written.
I'm sure. There's always a different director for every episode. So.
Yes.
I just found it strange that with this, he wrote everything except for that one. So I'm wondering what's going to happen in that episode per se. If that's actually going to be able continuity. No offense, but I get nervous whenever they change up different people in Star Wars. The sequel trilogy kind of scarred me with that. Thanks, Rian Johnson. But hopefully it stays in continuity. We don't get anything that's too fucking outrageous. Till next time when we watch insert title here. I'm Kat MacBerrie.
I'm Eric Stoller.
I'm Doug MacBerrie.
And we have spoken.